right, friends, welcome to the first episode of Innovation Lab, this podcast that I'm starting here with my co-host, Mr. Paul Martinez. He is a entrepreneur, a musician, a Silicon Valley genius. I don't know if that's going too far, Paul,
Farther
but
back
you
or
I gotta talk you up. You're writing a book, and we want to start by talking about it. Why are you writing a book, Paul?
oh man, just hit me with a heavy question, why don't you? Why am I writing a book? Well, in the last 27 years, I've had all kinds of jobs, right? Um, Majority of them have been engineering based, product development, and I've had the chance to drive innovation in a lot of pretty recognizable companies out there, right? And now I'm at a point where I'm a little older, you know, 27 years into this career, and I want to be able to give back. And there are some things that have been bothering me. Um, in other words, when you're young, you're driving creativity, innovation, engineering, and it's
Hmm.
exciting. Um, and then when as you get older, um, it's cool still to do that. You don't have that same kind of energy, but something else starts to spark. And I think what that is um, not all technological innovation. You start to see that not everything has a pure benefit to it. You
Yeah.
know,
So
uh,
you're saying you're getting bothered. Um, so can you elaborate on that? Like, um, are you saying that our approach to Silicon Valley, to innovation, is that broken? Um,
hmm, you know, I wouldn't say broken, right? Um, Kind of, and I talk about this in my book, right? If you look at an organism, for example, an organism evolves, right? Like the very first innovator is Mother Nature, right? Because as we evolved from, let's say, primordial ooze to, let's say, the current humans that we are, there were, certain things that the environment kind of imposed on these organisms, and then they had to adapt and change, right? So we can't say that like when it was successful, it was good, but when it was unsuccessful, it was bad. We can't say that it was bad. It just didn't work out. And that one through natural selection processes kind of goes away. And the one that did work, then it gets passed on. Um, so I wouldn't say broken. I just say that it's probably or very likely part of the natural evolution of technology and innovation, right? Like sometimes you don't see that there's a problem until you can smell the smoke. Does it make sense?
no.
No.
No, you started talking about evolution, right? Like how organisms evolve, and survival of the fittest comes up. And all
I
right,
don't
go ahead.
survival of the fittest. Yes, you know that may make sense, and maybe that's how it can be perceived. But that's not the entire story. Like if you go a little deeper, I'm saying go a level deeper than that. And what you start to see is that, um, you know, Mother Nature will drive some kind of a utility in an organism, you know, at the DNA and RNA level, and then it shows up in the
Hmm.
offspring, you know. And if it helps that offspring either grow or reproduce or survive better, then it's more likely to stick, It's
Yeah.
more likely to stick because survival of the fittest, right? Of the most adaptable. Um, and if it does stick, then we consider that a good utility for that organism. And if that organism, you know, continues to propagate that
Hmm.
new utility across the entire species, then we can say that it's an innovation from Mother Nature's standpoint, right?
Yeah. Would you say that cooperation is innate in intelligent beings, or is cooperation um, takes away from innovation?
Oh, so we're changing subjects, or you want me to? Because we
No,
we're
just on the same thought,
at the Mother
we
Nature level.
yeah, like in are we saying that as human beings we are see ourselves as social beings. However, the way capitalism is set up, how our financial system and how our um, reward systems are based, the folks that are taking more and more, they get rewarded currently. You
Mm,
have the billionaire class and 0.1%ers.
mm,
They're rewarded for not necessarily looking out for the interest of the species and more so for the individual. So my question is, do you think that cooperation is is not necessarily built um, into our reward systems are in our institutions?
well, I mean, I think cooperation is built into it, because yeah, that's part of the communication and the in the exchange of ideas. What I think may not be so built into it is um, a like a higher level conscientiousness, you know, where the drive to do maybe what's right, or what's best for everyone, or for the majority. You know, I think that there are tendencies that are geared towards the top 1%, and they can justify this because they continue to invest in economies and people, and because they're doing that, then it's a quote unquote good thing, right? They're not holding on to that wealth, they're continuing to reinvest it. It's
Mm-hmm.
when you know when you have that much power or potential, economic potential behind a few, um then you hope that they're
Yeah.
doing the right thing, right? That's all you can do is just hope, you know and maybe that's not good enough,
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah.
know
Trickle down economics, that Reagan sort of era philosophy that, hey, let the free markets decide, and if billionaires develop, they will end up trickling down their wealth, which we have seen has not happened.
well,
Um,
I mean, I think throughout history, you know there's there's we have been consistent in that not happening, right?
mhm.
um if we leave those patterns to continue, and what I'm saying is there should be a certain degrees of freedom. Like, I myself am capitalist. I think that very minor socialist inputs should be part of an economy. Um and there there can be ways that capitalism does fall apart. But I think that there can be ways where it can be utilized for good, like really utilized, very visible and evident to people,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Um, and I think a lot of it starts with the mindset of I'll call it conscientious innovation, you know, because what drives an economy is um, the production and consumption of goods and services, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's what drives that. And so, everyone is trying to compete with, in trying to come out with the better product or the better service. And so, it's a big buzzword, innovation. Um, many people use it in completely the wrong way, right? It's like, oh, we're innovating, right? They say things like that, or we're going to drive innovation. No,
Mhm.
innovation is an effect. Okay. It's when, certain utility goes out to people and then it propagates amongst the masses and it creates a large scale positive effect to an economy or a people or a society, then it results in an innovation. It is not what you're doing right now. It's a bit hyperbolic, right? You can't say I'm innovating because you don't know if that's going to be successful or not, on a grand scale. You can say that, I'm driving efforts towards the achievement of innovation, but you just can't say that you're innovating. So we misuse that, even from the get go. But
So yeah, so coming back to your mission, your book, you said conscientious conscientious innovation.
yeah, conscientious.
Um, so what exactly is your definition of it? Why is it needed? Let's go into that.
Well, so I'm thinking of this more holistic way of innovating. You know, right now, I'd say the basic model towards driving the development of the next generation or the new product or service is that we try to identify a need, um, that is somehow emerging from a people society. We identify a need, okay, and then we try to identify some way to be able to address that need. That way, you know can come in the form of a product or service, but we're trying to seek to address that need. And and at that point, if we can address it, then it serves as a utility, right? Something that
Mhm.
individuals can utilize that will bring value to the people who are, let's say, asking for it, the people, companies, organizations. And then we drive efforts to create it, develop it, and then deliver it, right? But that model seems to be missing something. And that is, before you even select to or choose to go ahead and develop it, what are the byproducts that product or service may end up creating as a result of you delivering and disseminating that product or service, those goods into, um, the free economy.
Mhm.
What could transcend from that? Um,
So if we take the example of, let's say, Meta, right?
mm,
Facebook,
mm,
an innovative powerhouse in Silicon Valley. We are all glued to our phones. It arguably connected us better with its products of WhatsApp and Instagram, uh, virtual reality,
yeah,
the promises of all of these things. They've innovated. They if you talk to like folks at Meta, they will say we're a innovative company and we're changing the world. We're a force for good, and there's a lot of truth to it. Um, but there's, as we all know, there's all of these byproducts that have come out. Folks are addicted to their phones. Kids are hooked to it. They've also been blamed for um, destabilizing democracies and countries,
yeah,
Burma and all of that. So
right,
without
right.
getting into that, what do you think, if we take that example, what did Meta miss? What could have they done if they had followed this example of this concept of conscientious innovation, where they would have addressed this or prevented it from happening?
Right. That's a good question, right? Because, um, there is a stipulation to all of this, right? Like, if you are going to try something new, you have to have some form of technology or infrastructure to be able to implement that, you know? And so if we ask, well, could they have anticipated that that some of what the some of their products or services could have influenced or impact, political systems, or that, individuals were going to, have issues psychologically because of likes,
Yeah.
and or lack thereof. Um, I don't think that that's something that could have been anticipated um, through the sole use of humans and human thought. I think that, now that the emergence of AI is taking place, right? It's starting to really permeate um, across the globe, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you take a look at, the types of jobs that are out there, there's a lot of jobs looking for people who who understand and can build out AI capability. So I can't say that it was preventable, you know. But what I can say is that now that we recognize it, and then we have certain infrastructure available to us, or that we can invest in building, that now, moving forward, if there are other further innovations that we can drive, um, then we can build in the capability to probably have AI sort through the potential impact that a certain utility uh, may end up um, driving into a people or society or an economy, you know. So,
How?
well, the thing is, let's say, for example, let's keep it simple, right? You know, there's a need, and the need is, I want my phone camera to have greater resolution for whatever reason. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
um and greater resolution, then, we drive to develop camera capability within a handset, or a pad based system, something that has um greater resolution. Okay. And so then you start to anticipate, well, what would the potential byproducts of that be, right? Greater resolution means that, let's say someone takes a picture, right? And somewhere in the distant background, um, you know, there's a potential for invasion of privacy, right? Whether we like it or not, some individual is hanging around with someone that he shouldn't be, you know, and the
Mm-hmm.
picture gets on the internet, in its original resolution, and all of a sudden, this guy's wife finds out, and zooms in, and oh, there he is in the
Yeah.
background,
Yeah.
accidental invasion of privacy, right? Just a simple byproduct. But we value things like privacy, right? That is, one of the staples of society, at least here in the U.S., right? Um, and so, could we have avoided that? Well, maybe if you built out an AI that looked at the various permutations that could possibly take place, then, when you take a photograph, now what happens is we know that we're trying to look at what's in the foreground and not what's in the background. And so what it'll do is, it will allow very good granularity and high definition to the people that you're taking a picture of, or the building that you're trying to photograph. And then in the background, it keeps it low res, and now
Mm-hmm.
we call that, privacy protection resolution. I don't know, things of
Yeah.
that nature, right? So if you have an AI that you can drive and, you know, create specific inputs into it, then it'll start to generate options and outputs. And in fact, the reason we've never invested in something like this, in trying to understand the byproduct, is because sometimes companies don't want to know what byproduct their product will create if the company's, maybe not so um, conscientious, right? Like, look
Mm-hmm.
at cigarettes, right? Imagine if we had an AI, and now all of a sudden we can mass produce cigarettes, and then back then the AI says, oh, you know, um, some studies show that there's a potential for harm, or tar buildup, or and what would the company do at that point? Do they say, well, we're not going to release cigarettes, we're not going to do something like this, sometimes the information is not available to us, right? I think it came later in cigarettes, in the cigarette market or industry that the combustion is what causes a cancer, right? But
Yeah.
so we probably could not have anticipated that, you know.
But do
Uh,
you think you you're pointing out AI as a potential solution to be able to look at all of the different ways a product can be misused or different byproducts could come out of the use of a product.
mm,
Do you think it is a technological has been a technological constraint for companies, or it's a more of a cultural issue where the engineers and the designers in their capitalistic mindset said, we don't give a shit about
mm.
what how it could be used. Could this be commercialized? Can we make dollars out of it? We don't need to worry about how it would be misused. That's not our responsibility.
Well, I mean, you know, maybe in movies where they're the bad guys and the good guys, but
Mhm.
I tend to think that you know the majority of corporations or individuals, um, who are driving the development of products and services,
Mhm.
especially Silicon Valley, um, you know, they're literally driving the creation of a product or service to provide utility for
Mhm.
people, places or things. So they're in the business of trying to do good, in their own mindset. Okay. Now,
Mhm.
if they are fully aware that what they are creating is not doing good and they're actively not trying to resolve the problem, then at that point you can say, oh, these guys are bad actors. They're not, they know that it creates harm, it causes harm, maybe on a mass scale. And if they're not really trying to drive some form of evolution or improvement, that reduces the harm, but then yeah, those are clearly bad actors. I haven't seen any evidence to that, at least in Silicon Valley, but we have seen evidence to that in other companies throughout the world, right? Companies
I
that
want to challenge you on that. I don't
okay,
think I think that's knowing you, you're viewing it from a very optimistic viewpoint. Correct me if challenge me, like I feel this is a more rosy view of things.
mm.
Silicon Valley investors and everybody, um,
So
they they're not necessarily they're looking to make their investments work as long as they can minimize the risk and not get into trouble. I don't think it goes beyond that culturally.
yeah, I mean, I don't think that they're out there trying to do harm, is what I'm saying. I don't think that they're out there trying to do harm,
Okay,
right?
yeah.
You're absolutely right. And, they are trying to minimize risk as much as possible, but if you look at the layers of a company, right, you got its people, its management, the board of directors and shareholders.
Hmm.
If anywhere there does exist, you know, a mindset that could cause, that entire chain to take more risk than necessary, it's because somewhere at the top, these investors that maybe are dropping loads of money are seeking a return. That's their goal, right? They want a return, and maybe they have some kind of belief in the product, but they're going to go after the return. That's their primary goal, you know. And then whatever happens down here, it's like, the board of directors are going to try to seek to make the investors and the shareholders happy. And then the management, has to keep the board happy, and the employees have to keep the management happy, you know.
Hmm.
So somewhere along that chain, you know, likely from the top down, if we say that the appetite for risk um, grows, it rarely grows from the bottom up. It grows from the top down, you know. And so what do? When it goes from the top down, you have all these people who are part of a large company and they end up succumbing to that. They end up having to obey, if you will.
Yeah.
Some of them don't and say, I'm out of here, I'm moving on to something else. And then others who maybe feel that, for whatever reason they stay, then they adapt to that. And in conscientious innovation, what I serve to do is I serve to fortify the people who make up a corporation. Because if you are going to win at anything, you're going to win by the numbers, And what has been winning in terms of numbers is money. And so what
Mm.
I'm trying to drive is numbers by people, by thought, you know, fortify the individuals in the corporation to push back, so that they can get management that's got balls to push back upwards, and if that's not, if these investors are not okay with that, then find other investors, find other shareholders, maybe that's a solution. But if you start with, by impacting the numbers of people, because I've worked at Apple, it's a huge company, you know, and it's one of the companies that is really driving conscientious innovation today. They're not implementing it, using AI. They're looking at ways that they can help. There's regulation that says you have to do this minimum, and they're coming in here. Why are they choosing to come in here when there are companies that say regulation is here, and then they come in here and they say, well, we're willing to just to pay the fines and fill the gap because it's more economical for us to do so. Why are there
Yeah.
companies that are here and here? What is driving that? And it's a mindset. It's a mindset to seek to try to do better. And some companies have that culture and others do not. And what I'm trying to say is that the companies that do not, they're kind of sick. There's something not right there. You know, um, so that's what this book is kind of driving at exposing and also helping to create mindset shifts.
So who's the audience for this book? Is it going to be the management? Is it
Mm.
the regular employee that's in a cog in this machinery? Um,
I've been thinking about this. You know, um, I mean, right now, I'd say like, this book is geared more towards the people who work in, let's call them the individual contributors, and maybe the low level managers, individuals that are involved in the day to day. That's who this is geared to. Once you start getting to the middle to upper management, it doesn't necessarily apply to them because they're not contributing to the generation of outputs. They're more driving managing resources and allocating them to the appropriate individuals.
mhm.
Um, so that's what it's geared towards them more so.
The masses, so
Yeah.
they can cause a revolution.
Well,
And
you know, I mean, if you want to innovate, you got
yeah,
to innovate even on the ways that you innovate.
yeah,
You
I
know,
think and we're hitting approaching the time here, but what's not clear to me is this whole concept of using AI for
Mhm.
to figure out byproducts because AI
So
is nothing but you either go through the ways of computer vision or you parse through um, large amount of text. We don't necessarily have a currently a way of giving inputs and going give me um, what's going to happen with this product, where will it fail,
mm,
you know.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there. You have to start simple. For one, the more complex an organization and the products and services that it creates, the more complex you're going to need an AI capability. But you can start with products or services that are significantly less complex, you know, and
Hmm.
seek to understand what would be those inputs, What would be the drivers? Um, and generate models around that. I mean, ultimately, the AI would have to have it'd have to be trained. And if there's generous amount of historical context to how a certain market or product or service category has performed and what it has drawn, what it has created in its evolution, like let's say the light bulb, right?
Hmm.
We started with this mainly heat source, and it also that generated light. And then we fast forward to today where we've got ultra efficient LEDs and you can have all these different colors. And if you seek to understand what were all those byproducts were in the chain of those events, you know, the impacts to society, then you can apply that same type of of AI training to
Hmm.
other products or services, and then you start to bridge the complexity medium. So it has to start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
The book doesn't focus on this. What I'm saying is I just briefly touch on that. I arrive at you know, what may be a possibility of how we could go about driving conscientious innovation. But this book is mainly focused on the mindset, that individuals could utilize
Hmm.
um, in the work that they do towards the creation of products and services.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. So maybe that's what we talk about next time, which is what is the current worker not seeing? What is missing? What
mm,
where they can go, you know?
yeah,
Um,
okay,
so
let's do it.
yeah.
Right.
All right. We're hitting time, and I'm using using free version of Zoom, so that's why it's showing 7 minutes left for the recording. But
Got it.
um, yeah, good conversation, Paul. We'll reconvene at another time.
All right, thanks, Ali.
All
Take
right.
care.
Thank you, sir. Bye.
Bye.